Chrisean Rock is failing that little boy, and by the time this video ends, that sentence is going to feel like the understatement of the year. This is not gossip. This is not a hit piece. This is a verdict backed by footage that Chrisean Rock uploaded with her own hands, and once you see it all laid out in one place, you are never going to look at her the same way again. Now, before we go any further, I hope everybody watching is doing good. I hope your week is treating you right, because what we are about to walk through is heavy. It is documented, and it is going to make a lot of people very uncomfortable. And you know what to do before we get into it. Hit that like button, because stories like this one, stories about what is happening to a child behind the cameras, have a funny way of getting quietly buried the moment they start gaining traction, and I need this one everywhere. Subscribe if you are new here, because this channel does not do the soft version, ever. And drop the word junior down in the comments, so I know exactly who made it through the first minute, because by the end of this, you are going to understand why that word is the saddest part of this entire story. And listen, I want to introduce you to a group of people before we get to Chrisean Rock herself, because this story does not work without them. I am calling them the Sympathy Machine. That is the name. The Sympathy Machine. It is the little network of gossip pages, panel streamers, and comment section bodyguards who have decided that Chrisean Rock deserves endless protection while her son gets endless silence. These are the people who will write 1,000 words about an argument Chrisean Rock had on Instagram Live, and not one single word about the diagnosis that child is living with. And you are going to see, by the end of this video, that the Sympathy Machine is not just annoying. It is expensive. And the person paying the price is a little boy who cannot even see the people defending his mother. So here is where we start, because most of the internet is still arguing about the surface level of this. Most people are still saying Chrisean Rock is young. Most people are still saying she is learning. Most people are still saying nobody is perfect and every new mom deserves patience. And I need you to understand something right now. Those people are watching the trailer. I have been watching the full tape. And the full tape is disturbing in a way that a 30-second clip will never show you. Let me give you the number that broke this whole thing open for me. 8.5 hours. Chrisean Rock sat on a live stream for 8.5 hours. Say that number out loud in your head. 8.5 hours is a full shift at any job in this country. 8.5 hours is a flight across the Atlantic. 8.5 hours is longer than some people spend awake in one stretch. And during that entire window, Chrisean Rock was not feeding her son. She was not bathing her son. She was not doing therapy exercises with her son. She was not reading to him, singing to him, taking him to a single appointment. She spent 8.5 hours crying over a grown man who does not claim her, obsessing over another woman who is now living the exact life she wanted, and performing heartbreak for a chat room full of strangers who would not lift a finger if that baby was in trouble. That is not a mother having a hard day. That is an entertainer using her child as set decoration. And I am going to prove it to you beat by beat. Because here is the part that should have ended every debate on the internet. In the middle of that marathon stream, in the middle of Chrisean Rock shouting about Blueface, shouting about the new baby, shouting about the woman whose name lives in her mouth rent-free, her son had a seizure. On camera. In real time. In front of everybody. And do you know what Chrisean Rock did in that moment? She reached over and touched him the way you touch a stove to check if it is still hot. That is the energy. That is the urgency. No screaming for help. No phone in her hand dialing 911. No keys, no shoes, no hospital run. A pat, a mumble about grabbing something from the other room, and the stream kept rolling. The stream kept rolling because in the world of Chrisean Rock, the audience is oxygen and that child is furniture. And when a mother has to choose between the camera and the kid, and the camera wins, you are not watching parenting anymore. You are watching a business model. Now take a breath, because we are going into the part of this story that most people do not know, and it starts with a name. The name is where the whole spite blueprint begins. Chrisean Rock originally wanted her son to carry his father's name. The plan was Jonathan Porter Jr., that was the announcement. That was the identity she wanted stamped on that child's paperwork forever. But here is what almost nobody talks about. You cannot make a child a junior on paperwork without the father. That is not a rumor. That is not a technicality. That is the process. The father has to show up. He has to sign. He has to present identification. He has to consent to his name being handed down to a brand new human being. Blueface did not show up. Blueface did not sign. Blueface did not consent. And so Chrisean Rock denied the naming ceremony she had planned, did what Chrisean Rock does when the world tells her no. She marched into a courthouse in an act of pure, unfiltered spite and rewrote her son's legal identity around herself. She named him after her. Chrisean Jr. except the paperwork does not even line up the way a real junior would. Her middle name is not his middle name. His middle name is Jesus, which, no disrespect to anybody's faith, is not a junior of anybody in that house. So the nickname stuck, the documents do not match, and the entire junior branding is a monument to a woman trying to win a war she had already lost before the ink dried. And now here comes the twist that explains every meltdown you have watched for the past year. The other woman. The one Chrisean Rock cannot stop naming. The one whose existence sends her into hour 8 of a live stream. That woman just had Blueface, baby. And Blueface showed up. Blueface signed. Blueface consented. Which means that right now, in the state of California, there is a legal, documented, breathing Jonathan Porter Jr., a real one. The exact title Chrisean Rock wanted for her son. And understand me clearly, she is not spiraling over a name. She is spiraling because that other woman is currently living the life she spent years auditioning for. The house. The man present at the hospital. The healthy baby. The family photo. The stability. She does not have that. What Chrisean Rock has is a child who cannot see her face, a child who cannot walk on his own, a child who cannot tell her when he is scared, and a live stream that has never once saved her from any of it. That is why the crashes keep coming. That is why the 8-hour streams keep happening. That is why she threatens to pull up on people, why she fights the internet every single week. Because the mirror is unbearable, so she smashes it on camera, night after night, and calls this smashing content. Let me now get into what is actually happening to that little boy, because we have to say these things out loud, and we have to say them precisely. Junior is almost 3 years old. Almost 3. And that child cannot see. I need you to hear that sentence without rushing past it. He cannot see. And I already know what the sympathy machine is typing right now. They are typing, but he reacted to a spoon. But he turned his head. But he flinched at the light. Stop. Please stop. Blindness is not a light switch. Vision loss lives on a spectrum. Some blind children perceive shadows. Some perceive blurs. Some catch fast motion and nothing else. Some live in total darkness. A toddler reacting to a spoon dangled 2 inches from his face does not prove he sees the spoon. It proves he might sense a shape, a shadow, a shift in the air, a temperature change on his skin. It does not mean he can look up at Chrisean Rock and know that the woman holding him is his mother. And that is not my theory. That is Chrisean Rock's own upload. The video she posted herself, where she crawls across the floor on her hands and knees toward her own son, and the moment she gets close, that baby jerks in fear because he did not know a human being was approaching him. Read that sentence back to yourself slowly. He did not know his own mother was coming until she was on top of him. And the reason he did not know is that from his eye level, down there on the floor, she was not a person. She was a shape in the dark. A silhouette with no name attached. That one clip should have shattered Chrisean Rock. It should have been the last video she ever posted before shutting every account down and dedicating the next decade of her life to that child's care. Instead, she kept streaming. Because for Chrisean Rock, the stream is not a job. The stream is life support for her ego, and unplugging it feels like dying. And that is only the eyes. That is one diagnosis out of several. Now let us talk about the club feet, because this is the part where I actually have to pause while I am writing this. Junior has club feet. That is a real condition, and more importantly, it is a treatable one. This is not a medical mystery. The treatment path is well documented. Specialists. Casting. Gentle, structured stretching. Orthotics. In some cases, surgery. And above all of that, consistency. A routine supervised by actual medical professionals, week after week, month after month. That routine is not sitting a nearly 3-year-old boy in a battery-powered baby swing that was designed for a newborn and calling it therapy. That is not rehabilitation. That is furniture. She is using nursery equipment as a substitute for medicine, and every hour that child spends folded into a swing his body has already outgrown is another hour his feet, his hips, his spine, and his entire physical development are paying a bill they did not create. That is not motherhood. That is warehousing. And I do not use that word for shock value. Warehousing is what you call it when a person with every resource available chooses storage over care. She is storing a disabled child in the corner of the room while she performs grief for an audience of grown men who will not remember her name by New Year. Then we get to the seizures, and this is where the story stops being sad and starts being something else entirely. She has said, in her own voice, on her own stream, in her own words, that the seizures are getting longer. Longer. She admitted it. She said it to the camera. And in a sane world, that admission would have been the moment a mother threw every phone in the house into a lake, put that baby in a car, drove to a children's hospital, and refused to leave until a person with a white coat and a real degree looked her son in the eye. Instead, that admission became a segment. A story beat. A piece of content sandwiched between rants about Blueface. And I need everybody watching to understand what a seizure actually is, because I do not think she understands it, and I know the sympathy machine does not. A seizure is not a moment. A seizure is damage. Every single seizure a child experiences is doing something to that developing brain. It is stealing progress. It is stealing milestones. It is stealing tomorrow. And when a mother watches that happen on camera, pats the child like a hot pan, and keeps the stream running, you are not looking at ignorance anymore. You are looking at a priority list, and the child is not at the top of it. And here is where Chrisean Rock reaches for the one shield she always reaches for, and I want to answer it directly, on the record, right now. She says God has the last say. She says it every time the questions get too close. And listen to me carefully, because I am not coming for anybody's faith. Faith is not the problem. Faith without action is the problem. Prayer is not a pediatric neurologist. Scripture is not a treatment plan. You do not get to live stream through your child's medical emergencies and then hide behind a Bible verse when the internet asks why nobody with a medical license has been in that room. That is not spirituality. That is a shield made out of scripture, built to protect a lifestyle she has no intention of giving up. And the sympathy machine repeats it back like it means something, because repeating it costs them nothing, and asking the real question would cost them access. Now let me show you the part that convinced me this has crossed the line from neglect into something deliberate. Junior has no schedule, no bedtime, no mealtime, no consistent nap, no structure of any kind. And I need you to sit with what that means for a child with his specific diagnoses, because routine is not a luxury for a kid like Junior. Routine is treatment. A blind child with a seizure disorder and sensory sensitivities needs a day that is predictable down to the hour, because predictability is the only map he has. His world is dark. Routine is how he learns that the dark is safe. And what has Chrisean Rock done instead? She has taken that boy to a smoke shop at 2 in the morning. She has taken that boy backstage at brawls. She has taken that boy into street fights, into rooms so loud and so smoky and so chaotic that a healthy grown adult would walk out with a headache and a racing heart. This is a child who is blind. A child who seizes. A child whose nervous system is already working overtime just to process an ordinary quiet room. And she keeps dragging him into chaos, because the chaos is where her content lives. And then, when the predictable happens, when a child with no schedule cannot sleep, when his little body has no idea what time it is or what it is supposed to do, does she build a routine? Does she dim the lights, run a bath, lower the noise, read to him, hum to him, give his nervous system the slow landing it needs? No. She reaches for melatonin. She sedates him. She dopes a disabled toddler into unconsciousness so she can go live for 8 more hours. Let that sit in your chest for a second. The child is not sleeping because his body is rested. The child is sleeping because his mother needs him quiet, and quiet is available over the counter. And look at where he sleeps. The playpen has no toys, no textures, no colors for him to reach toward, no sound machine, no stuffed animals, nothing. Pillows. Just pillows and walls and a chemically silenced little boy stored on the floor while his mother performs. He is not resting. He is not playing. He is being understimulated to the point of regression, and regression is a clinical word, not an emotional one. A blind child needs more input, not less. More textures, not fewer. Music. Hands-on toys. Objects with wheels he can chase by sound. Tactile books. Water play. Verbal narration from the adults in the room describing every single thing that happens around him, because when a child cannot see the world, somebody has to name the world for him, out loud, all day, every day. Junior is getting none of it. Junior is getting pharmaceutical sleep, a mother whose voice he mostly hears when she is yelling into a phone, and a room with nothing in it. That is not parenting. That is not even babysitting. That is storage. And do not get me started on the feeding situation, because this is another place where the sympathy machine has been running cover for years. They say the child is picky. They say he is difficult. They say Chrisean Rock is doing her best with a hard baby. Let me translate what is actually happening. A blind child whose other senses have sharpened to compensate for his lost sight is not picky. He is overwhelmed. Every plate placed in front of him is a storm of smells he cannot organize. Every spoon is a mystery object flying at his face out of total darkness. That child does not need a frustrated influencer sighing into a camera about how he will not eat. That child needs a feeding therapist, a pediatric occupational specialist, an adult trained in sensory integration who can do slow, patient, narrated, textured introductions to food week after week after week until eating stops feeling like an ambush. She does not know what any of those words mean. And worse, she does not want to learn them, because learning them would require her to log off, and logging off is the one sacrifice Chrisean Rock will never make. So, what does she do with her time instead? You already know. She goes live. She talks about Blueface. She talks about the other woman. She stares at that other woman's baby, that healthy baby, that walking baby, that seeing baby, the real Jonathan Porter Jr., the legal one, the signed one, and she rages. And I want to be precise about why she rages, because this is the psychology underneath every single crash out. She is not raging at them. She is raging at a reflection. A few miles away there exists a version of her own life where the baby is fine, the man showed up, the paperwork got signed, and none of the disasters that fill her everyday existence ever happened. She is watching somebody else live the ending she wrote for herself, and it is eating her alive. And deep down, in the part of her soul she never lets on camera, Chrisean Rock knows the truth that none of her defenders will say out loud. The condition that child is in did not fall out of the sky. Choices led to it. Environments led to it. A pregnancy carried through a hurricane of drinking, fighting, screaming, stress, and instability led to it. And now the bill has come due, and the person paying it is a nearly 3-year-old boy who cannot even see the woman who owes it. That is why she cannot sit in silence. Understand this, because it is the key to the entire person. She does not fear Blueface. She does not fear the internet. She does not fear being blocked, banned, or embarrassed. Chrisean Rock fears silence. Because silence is the one place where she would have to hear her son. So the mirror gets replaced with a phone. The phone gets replaced with a stream. And the stream always needs a target, so the target rotates. Blueface 1 week. The other woman the next. A rival creator. A stranger in the comments. Anybody. Absolutely anybody will do, as long as the noise stays loud enough to drown out the small, quiet, suffering child on the floor of her living room. Because here is what the sympathy machine never wants to walk through, and it is the part of the story that turns a bad week into a documented pattern. None of this started last month. None of it started with the 8-hour stream. Go back through the timeline, and I mean really go back, not to the highlight clips, but to the full unedited record, and you will find that every single warning sign was visible on camera in real time for years. The fights during the pregnancy. The chaos during the pregnancy. The instability that was not hidden, not rumored, not alleged, but broadcast, monetized, and clipped for engagement while that baby was still developing. Every specialist who works with high-risk infants will tell you the same thing. The environment a child grows in before birth and during the first 1,000 days of life is not background noise. It is architecture. It is the foundation everything else gets built on. And that foundation was poured in the middle of a hurricane, on camera, for views. So when people ask how we got here, the honest answer is that we did not get here suddenly. We got here one ignored appointment at a time. One skipped specialist at a time. 1 more hour of streaming instead of 1 more hour of therapy, repeated day after day, until the gap between where that child is and where that child should be became too wide to hide behind a filter. And I want to address one more thing before we move forward, because I can already hear the counterargument warming up. People are going to say, she loves that boy, you can see it, look at the birthday posts, look at the matching outfits, look at the captions. And I am going to tell you the hardest truth in this entire video. Love that only exists on camera is not love. It is wardrobe. Real love for a child with Junior's needs is invisible. It happens at specialist appointments nobody posts about. It happens in therapy sessions with no ring light. It happens at 2 in the morning, not at a smoke shop, but in a dark quiet room with a parent doing the slow, repetitive, unglamorous work of helping a disabled child feel safe in a world he cannot see. None of that content would trend. All of it would matter. And the fact that we have years of footage of the performances and not one documented hour of the work tells you everything about which one she values. Care is a verb. It is measured in appointments kept, therapies completed, and routines protected. It is not measured in captions. Now I want to talk directly to the sympathy machine, because you have been quiet long enough, and it is time to answer for what you have built. You know exactly who you are. You are the gossip pages that published 100 stories about the drama and 0 stories about the diagnoses. You are the streamers who booked Chrisean Rock for 8-hour panels and never once asked where the baby was during a single one of them. You are the comment section warriors who materialize under every video, every post, every clip, screaming "Leave her alone. She is a young mother," as if young mothers do not carry a duty of care, as if her age is armor against her son's suffering, as if her painful past is a permission slip for his painful present. You are the machine. And you are the reason a child is losing milestones one seizure at a time while the adults in the room debate whether his mother's feelings are being respected. You want to defend her? Defend her son first. Defend the boy who cannot defend himself. Defend the baby who cannot even see the argument you are having on his behalf. And if you cannot bring yourself to do that, then at least stop calling your defense love. It is not love. It is content preservation. You are protecting a storyline that pays you, which makes you exactly like her, because that is precisely what she is doing to her son. And I need you to sit with that sentence, because it is the center of this whole video. That baby is not her child anymore. He is her narrative. He is the sympathy generator she reaches for when the numbers dip. He is the "look how hard my life is" reel she runs when the algorithm forgets her name. He is the excuse loaded into every crash out to prove the world has been cruel to her. And the moment the story stops being useful, the moment the tears stop trending, the moment the baby stops functioning as a plot device, the phone turns somewhere else and he goes back to the floor. That is not motherhood. That is casting. She has cast her own son in a role, and the role is suffering extra number 2 in the Chrisean Rock cinematic universe, and there is no version of that sentence that should be survivable for her career. Now let me deal with the deflection I know is already being typed. What about Blueface? And listen, I understand the instinct. I share the anger. Blueface has said and done unforgivable things about his own son, and there will be a video about that man on this channel, and it will not be gentle. But I refuse to let the deflection work tonight, so let me be surgical about it. Blueface is not the one patting a seizing toddler like a stovetop. Blueface is not the one skipping the specialists. Blueface is not the one choosing melatonin over therapy. Blueface is not the one folding a 3-year-old into a newborn swing. Blueface is not the one crawling toward a blind child at floor level so that the child flinches in terror. Chrisean Rock is doing every single one of those things. The camera is in her hand. The stream is on her account. The house runs on her keys. The child is in her care. And when Child Protective Services eventually knocks on that door, and I will be the one to say it plainly, they should have knocked already, they will not be knocking for Blueface. They will be knocking for her. Every defense of Chrisean Rock has to survive that one image. If your argument collapses the moment we ask why the state has not walked through that door yet, then your argument was never a defense. It was cope. And I want to be clear about something before we go further, because there is a difference between cruelty and clarity, and adults know the difference. Cruelty is enjoying somebody's pain. Clarity is refusing to lie about it. I do not enjoy any of this. There is no version of me that celebrates watching a young mother fall apart in public. My issue is not with Chrisean Rock the human being. My issue is with Chrisean Rock the brand, the persona, the machine, the character she has constructed that feeds on her own child for content. And anybody who blurs those two things on purpose is doing exactly what she needs you to do. She is counting on you to fuse her identity with her son's identity so that any criticism of her behavior feels like an attack on him. That is manipulation. It is textbook. And thousands of you fall for it every single day. Let me say the harder thing now. She is not the first mother in celebrity history to run this play, and she will not be the last. There is a lineage. There is a template. It is the template of the young, hurting, chaotic woman who gets handed a platform, handed a famous partner, handed a pregnancy, handed a spotlight, and instead of using any one of those gifts to build a stable home, she broadcasts the collapse in real time and labels it authenticity. And the internet applauds. The internet always applauds. Until the applause stops, and then she is left standing alone inside the wreckage, and every person who cheered swears they never saw a thing. I am telling you tonight, that disappearing act will not be available this time. This time it is all on camera. This time the diagnoses are named. This time the seizures are documented. This time the 8-hour streams are archived. This time the swing is on video. This time, nobody gets to say they did not know. And here is the quiet part, said as loud as I can say it. Do not let the sympathy machine rebrand this story. They're going to try. They're going to call it a mental health story, a young mother story, a poverty story, a systemic failure story. And every one of those framings is a lie, because she is a wealthy woman. Chrisean Rock has access to the best pediatric neurologists in Los Angeles. She can afford feeding therapists, vision specialists, orthopedic surgeons, in-home nurses, sensory consultants, and sleep coaches, all of them, simultaneously, without checking her bank account. She has access to everything a struggling single mother in the projects would trade years of her life to obtain. And she is choosing content over care, streams over specialists, Blueface over her boy, an audience over a son. Every excuse the internet has tried to hand her, youth, trauma, money, mental health, she is personally invalidated by possessing every resource and deploying none of them. Do not let anybody launder her choices into a systemic critique. That is an insult to every genuinely struggling mother in this country who would move heaven and earth for a fraction of the tools Chrisean Rock throws away every night. Now I want to talk about you for a minute, the person watching this, because there is a specific kind of viewer who has been trained to see her as the underdog, and that training was not an accident. That packaging is deliberate. That packaging keeps her monetized. That packaging keeps her sympathetic. That packaging keeps the machine fed. And here is the part nobody wants to hear. Every time you like a video that softens what she has done, you are voting for the packaging. Every time you scroll past a clip of that child on the floor because it is too sad to sit with, you are voting for the packaging. Every time you argue with a stranger online that she is doing her best, you are voting for the packaging. And tonight I am asking you to do something that costs nothing and changes everything. Stop voting. That is all. Do not attack her. Do not attack her defenders. Do not even comment prayers. Just stop rewarding the packaging, because the packaging is the only thing keeping that child sealed inside of it. Attention is the currency, and she spends every cent of it on herself. There is a phrase people type under videos like this one, and I know you have typed it too, because I have typed it. Somebody needs to help that baby. I need you to understand something, and I need you to carry it out of this video with you. You are the somebody. Every single person watching this is the somebody. There is no cavalry. There is no anonymous authority scrolling the internet at midnight searching for the next child to rescue. The way children in situations like this one get pulled toward safety is that the noise around them gets so loud, so consistent, and so impossible to ignore that the people with actual legal power can no longer pretend they did not hear it. That noise is you. That noise is the share button. That noise is the comment. That noise is the calm, factual, non-harassing report filed with the proper agency in the proper state. That noise is a public that refuses to scroll on until a little boy with club feet, a seizure disorder, and no vision is given a real chance at a life that exists outside of a live stream. And now I want to speak to her directly, because I know she watches. She watches every creator who says her name. She reads every comment. She has admitted as much more than once on her own streams. So, Chrisean, if you are listening, and we both know you are, because the audience you are addicted to is the exact reason your son is where he is, hear me. Log off. Not for a day. Not for a stunt. Not for a redemption arc with a camera crew attached. Log off the way a mother logs off. Log off the way the woman you have always claimed you could become would log off. Delete the streaming schedule. Cancel the appearances. Turn the phone face down on the counter and let it die there. And then pick up your son. Not for a photo. Not for a caption. Pick him up like he is the most important person who has ever been in a room with you, because he is. Take him to a real pediatric neurologist. Take him to a real ophthalmologist. Take him to a real orthopedic specialist. Take him to a real feeding therapist. Bring a real sleep specialist into that house and let them rebuild his entire day from the floor up. Fill his room with toys that rattle and roll and play music. Get him books he can feel. Narrate his world to him, minute by minute, out loud, so that even if he can never see it, he grows up knowing somebody thought he was worth describing it to. Be a mother out loud, in private, with no camera, for the first time in his life. And when the withdrawal hits, and it will hit, when the silence starts screaming in your head and your hand reaches for that phone on its own, remember this. The boy on the floor is the only audience that will still love you after the algorithm forgets you. The boy on the floor is the only person in your entire life who does not need a stream to care whether you exist. The boy on the floor is the only review of your life that is going to matter when the views are gone. Do not fail that review. So here is what I need from everybody watching before we close this out. I need you to comment the word junior one more time, so this video reaches every timeline that needs to see it. I need you to share this with that one person in your life who keeps defending her, because they deserve to see all of the receipts in one place instead of scattered across 100 clips. Subscribe if this is your first time on this channel, because we do not soften the truth here, we do not sell comforting lies, and you are going to want that in your feed the next time a story like this breaks. And remember what I told you earlier, that man Blueface has his own reckoning coming, and that video is already in the works, so you're going to want to be here when it drops. And while you are down there, tell me this in the comments, because I genuinely want to know where this community stands. Who deserves the louder defense, the mother with every resource on earth, or the child with none of her advantages and all of her consequences? You already know where I stand. I want to see where you stand. And I need you to promise me one last thing. The next time you see somebody in your own family, in your own building, in your own community treating a child like a storyline instead of a soul, say something. Not a lecture. Not a war. Just a word. Because Chrisean Rock is not the disease. Chrisean Rock is the symptom. The disease is a culture that turns children into content and then acts shocked when the content starts dying. And to the ones who are going to run to the comments right now to type that I am being too harsh, I want you to ask yourself one question before your fingers touch the keyboard. If the child in this story were yours, if that were your son, your nephew, your godson, sitting blind and seizing in an empty playpen while the adult responsible for him performed for strangers, would you still think 8 hours of live streaming was just a young mother venting? Or would you call it what it is? Sit with your answer, because your answer is the whole point of this video. The show is over. The live stream might still be running, but the story it was telling has already ended, and it does not end the way she wanted it to. It ends with a small boy who deserved a mother and got a performer instead. It ends with a household that held every resource in both hands and chose every wrong turn anyway. It ends with an internet that was warned, that watched, that laughed, and that now has to decide whether the next chapter gets written by us or by the algorithm. I know which side I am voting for. I hope you are voting with me. So tonight, hug your babies. Feed them slow. Look them in the eye. Say their names out loud so they learn the sound of being loved. And do not take it for granted, not for 1 second, that they can see you saying it. Because somewhere in Los Angeles right now, there is a little boy the internet calls Junior, a junior in nickname only, in spite only, in paperwork written out of ego instead of love, sitting on a floor, in a swing too small for his body, in a house too loud for his mind, waiting for a mother who is too online to arrive. Be louder than her stream. Be louder than her spite. Be louder than the machine that protects her. Be louder for Junior. Because if we are not, nobody will be. And that is not a story any of us can afford to live with.